Yeti, Giant of the 20th Century is a crazy 70s movie involving a prehistoric giant, a multimillionaire, and a nipple? Oh boy, what have I gotten myself into this time? The craziness starts out right away with Morgan Honeycutt, the millionaire philanthropist who drops out of his helicopter to have a chat with Professor Henry Wasserman.
Hi there, Henry. I'm here.
Is this a thing? Can you do that? Just ride a chair down from a helicopter to the ground? It looks like fun. Honeycutt tells Henry that he has a big opportunity for him, and he needs the professor's intelligence to get the job done right. So what is this big job? Well, it's just thawing out a million-year-old giant. No big deal. He speculates that a long time ago there was an avalanche that hit our friend here. He was frozen in an iceberg and drifted in the ocean until he ended up in northern Canada. The Yeti is preserved in a perfect state, and Henry thinks he might be able to reanimate him. He just needs equipment and help, which Honeycutt promises he will get him everything he needs. But all he's interested is dollar signs, and how this new discovery can promote his business. Some guy overhears this conversation and calls his boss to try to take down Honeycutt. Who is credited with finding this discovery? Well, that would be Herbie and Jane Honeycutt, Morgan's grandchildren. Apparently, their parents were killed in a plane accident that left Herbie mute, so their grandfather is all they have left. The time finally comes to turn on the defrost cycle on this guy, and the ice starts to slowly melt off of him. There's a period of time where it looks like he might not make it. His heart is failing. They shoot some electricity directly into it, and it starts pumping again. And the prehistoric Yeti starts breathing oxygen once more.
Yes.
Understandably so, the giant is pretty confused. I mean, to him, he was just minding his own business, a bunch of snow fell on him, and now he wakes up in a cage, picked up by a helicopter being controlled by these tiny humans. They knock him out with some gas so that they can land, and they prepare for anything. They surround the enclosure with riflemen, and Jane doesn't like that one bit. But Cliff, one of her grandfather's higher-ups, assures her that that's just for a worst-case scenario. Anyway, they land, and when he comes to, everyone starts taking pictures of him, and he does not like the flash. The Yeti breaks out of his cage as shots are fired, and the workers all run to the forest for cover. The Yeti runs after them, but notices Jane and her brother passed out on the ground. This triggers something within him, and he gently picks up the kids and carries them away. Alright, here it is. Are you ready for this? Because I surely wasn't. Jane loses her balance and grabs onto the creature's chest to try to catch herself. And when she does, its nipple gets hard. Seriously, I can't make this stuff up. Somebody actually had to make a giant nipple and then blow it up. I looked through the credits. I couldn't find the name of the nipple blower, but that guy deserves an award. But the strangeness doesn't stop there. Equally as confusing is what happens next. The Yeti gets some fish for the kids, which they pretend to eat. He eats a big one and then uses the bones to comb Jane's hair. Great, now her hair has fish guts in it. The professor and Cliff are trying to find the kids, and it's not like it's gonna be that hard. I mean, just follow the giant footprints. But even so, they have a dog to show the way. When they get there, the professor can see that Bigfoot is gentle and innocent, and he now sees them as a family, with Herbie being the Yeti's son, and Jane being his wife. Okay. I looked it up, and the actress who played Jane was 16 years old at the time. And there's a little part later on that implies that her and Cliff are a thing, and he's 41.
She might have some duties to fulfill if she stays overnight.
Why don't you have a seat right over there?
Honeycutt wasted no time cashing in on his discovery. People have Yeti Fever, and he is making money hand over fist. The original plan, and the only way the professor would agree to help, is if the Yeti stays in its natural habitat. But after seeing all the dollar signs, the decision was made to bring him into the city. This isn't going to end well, is it? Before he shows up, however, we see a group of rival businessmen who are not happy with Honeycutt's success. They've come together to vote on who will be the one to take him down. And it turns out the guy elected is Cliff. Oh, what a twist. So, he's the guy working on the inside, scheming to take down the corporation. Basically, just know that Cliff is a bad guy now. Finally, the time has come. The Yeti will be in the big city. People are lined up in the streets and on rooftops just hoping to get a glimpse of the creature. I'm not gonna lie, I'd probably be there too. The Yeti lands on top of Honeycutt Tower, and at first it looks like everything might be okay. But then the reporters show up with their camera flashes, and as we all know, he doesn't like that. He starts yelling and people go running to the elevator. It makes me think, why did you have to land him on top of a high-rise? You had to know something like this was gonna happen. Anyway, Jane is in the elevator and the Yeti grabs it, not knowing she's in there, and he gives the people a little ride. I'm actually surprised this isn't a ride at Universal Studios. They already have Kong, just turn him into Yeti and you're halfway there. After a while, Yeti does notice Jane in the elevator, and he tries to get her out, breaking it in the process.
Come on, give me your hand. I'll help you down.
Nope. Scared of getting cut in half.
Everyone else is able to get out, but Jane. She's hanging on for dear life as the elevator crumbles around her. Yeti climbs down the tower, and as Jane loses grip and falls. That's okay. He's there to lend a hand. Now he's loose on the streets, and everyone is panicking. Jane is able to take control of the situation and lead the Yeti to a warehouse, which of course her grandfather owns. They hide out there, and she's able to call everyone to let them know she's safe. But the Yeti isn't. He isn't used to the air in the city, and starting to pass out. They rig a giant O2 system and are able to keep him stable, but the professor knows they need to get him back to the mountains. Everyone gets a moment to get some rest and a little shut-eye, and that's when Cliff's goons attack. They disconnect the oxygen and rig the phone, then wake up the professor saying the Yeti is dying. Their plan goes perfectly. He can't figure out what's wrong, even though all he would have to do is look at the disconnected hose. The kids come in and they try to call for help, but the phone doesn't work. So they hop in a car to try to get someone to help. But little do they know, the car is driven by the enemy. While they're on their wild goose chase, the professor is killed, but in such a way that the police would blame the Yeti. Before they show up, though, the Yeti wakes up and actually does kill the bad guys. One by pinching him in between his toes. What a way to die. I wonder if Bigfoot's feet smell. Well, anyway, the Yeti is now on the loose, and the police are chasing him because they think he killed the professor. The kids are trying to save Yeti and get him free, and Cliff just wants to kill it for the heck of it. It all accumulates to a construction site outside the city. Cliff shoots at it with a rocket launcher, and when that doesn't work, he rams the Yeti with a truck. It does nothing, and he's crushed. The police open fire, and all that does is anger him. It's not until Jane steps in that he calms down. Now, throughout this whole movie, Jane has grown to see this thing as her friend. Maybe not his wife, but still a friend. She knows this isn't right, and he can't live in the city. So, she does the hardest thing you can do to a friend. She yells at him and tells him to leave, even though she might not want to.
Go away. This world is not for you. Go back to the wilderness, to the mountains, where life is like you knew it.
Phew! What a ride! Yeti, giant of the 20th century, is an interesting one. It's no doubt a ripoff of King Kong, but I think we all knew that going in. What I didn't expect was all the craziness. Morgan Honeycutt is great. I just love his laugh. He's kind of a prick. His grandkids are what comes first, and then money. The Yeti looks like an 80s Mel Gibson, but with even bigger hair. But honestly, for a late 70s movie, it wasn't all that bad. But I can't excuse the biggest WTF moment I've ever seen. What's the deal with that nipple? You couldn't think of anything better to do? How about don't cast a 16-year-old, or better yet, just get rid of the nipple scene, and make it that Jane is the Yeti's daughter? It's just so weird and out there, but I guess if they cut the part, I don't think we'd be talking about it today. I do have to give credit to the music. It's super 70s and I dig it. And I actually really enjoyed that ending. I like to think that the Yeti is living out there in some giant log cabin on the mountains. I think they left it open for a sequel, Yeti, giant of the 21st century. Now that would be awesome. Yeti, giant of the 20th century is a wild, fun ride that I recommend watching just for a few laughs. I give it 2.5. What else? Yeti nipples out of 4.
That slave of yours should cut your throat. Well, Tony, what are you waiting for?
You want the clothes to shave?